Hi, this is Ricky from vRealize Planet, and in this video I'm going to show you how to customize your vRealize Automation Center front page. Now before I continue, I need to give Fabio over at GoSDDC.com some credits because he originally posted an article about how to do this in the first place. What I'm doing with this video though is going into a little bit more detail and showing you some additional hacks, and I'll talk about those later. If you're not familiar with what I refer to, here is an example of my home lab VCAC instance where I have modified the front page, logon page for a specific tenant, so it looks completely different than the default stock user interface that is provided out of the box with VCAC. What I'm also going to show you is a few hacks that isn't described to do things like change the color and the style of this logon button as well, and I'll describe those later. If I just jump back to the slides very quickly, what you need to actually do this is a few things. Of course, you need a VCAC tenant to modify in the first place, right? You're going to need a copy of WinSCP because we're going to copy files in and out of the VCAC SSO ID appliance, and you're going to need a freeware tool called JExplorer, and JExplorer is going to give us the capability to hack the tenant LDAP information, so we can specify things like new graphics and the new coloring for that portal specifically for the tenant that we going to modify. The steps look like this, and I'm actually going to walk through these steps so you can see this firsthand. But the first thing we need to do is ensure that SSH is enabled on our VCAC ID appliance, and that's to give us the capability to use WinSCP so we can copy some files in and out of the ID appliance, and those files are going to be things like graphics files and style sheets. What eventually we're going to do is add our own files to the SSO appliance specifically for a tenant. And like I mentioned before, we're going to hack some additional files and the LDAP information for that specific tenant so we can get this modified look and feel. Yep, okay, so we mentioned those as well. We're going to hack some style sheets that not mentioned anywhere else that actually allow us to manipulate and change the logon button. The one thing that has to be, and this is a caveat really, is that you need to be aware of is I haven't found a way of actually doing this for individual tenants, but the logon button, which is defined within those login style sheets, is for all tenants. So if you change it for one, you change it for all. However, the rest of the look and feel is on a per tenant basis. So if we get going, the first thing that we're going to need to do is actually log into our VCAC appliance, VCAC ID appliance. Sorry for this, 1 second. On port 5480. And under admin, we just need to make sure that we've got these checkboxes checked. This enables us, I mean, in production, really, they shouldn't be checked. But for test and dev, this allows us to copy files in and out of the VCAC appliance using WinSCP to allow us to modify our interface. So as you can see, that's okay. So the next thing that we're going to do is use a copy of WinSCP. I've just been past it. WinSCP, and log into the VCAC appliance. And actually, a folder that you're actually looking for on the VCAC appliance looks like this. It's under the USR folder, under library, VMware STS, web apps, web SSO, resources, image. So the image files, for example, the one that looks like this here is located in this folder on the VCAC ID appliance. However, just another area of interest to us, if we go up a level, there is a folder called CSS, and that's where you'll find the login style sheets. I'll come back to those later, but we're going to want to download those and make some modification to those. They're actually pretty much the same file, except for I think VMware's obviously had to create different versions of the style sheets to suit older legacy versions of the Internet Explorer browser. The modification I made to the style sheets, again I'll show you later, I just mirrored in all three of those files. So back to the images themselves. What I did was I basically downloaded those graphics into a folder onto my desktop and made my own version of these image files so I could upload them back into the VCAC ID appliance. If we look, for example, at this one, this you can see is the default graphic that's comes out of the box with VCAC, right? Now I created a file, roughly the same size, and just gave it, gave it the look and feel I wanted for my portal, right? Yeah. So orange background and a nice logo, nice graphic, whatever you want to put there yourself. I then saved the file. I could have saved the file actually with any file name, but because I'm lazy, I decided just to keep the same similar kind of file name as the original file, but put a different digit on the end. So, and pretty much you do that for the other graphics that are downloaded from this image folder with off the VCAC appliance, right, off the VCAC ID appliance. And then when you're ready, what you do is actually you copy your modified files back into this folder. So I mean, there's the advantage there. I would definitely keep a copy of the original one somewhere, or don't modify the original one at all, but make your own version of that graphic here and copy it back over. Actually, I did something kind of neat as well, a bit geeky and a bit nerdy. There is a busy animation as well. So when you log on, right, yeah, so if I show you this, right, when you log on, for a split second, a busy animation pops up. And I changed the default one to this. Hopefully you can see it. Look at that. Whoa, that's super cool, right? For a split second, you saw the animation. So I actually added my own version of that busy animation and copied it over there as well. The one thing about that specific busy animation was I couldn't actually find where in the settings to change which file to use. So I decided actually to copy over the original one and actually copy the original one and rename it as, minus old. Also included is your company logo. So I don't know if you can see this because it's mostly transparent, but on my portal you'll see this big canopy logo over here. I also copied that across into that folder. So once you've got all the files copied back onto the VCAC ID appliance, so the next thing we're going to do is open up JExplorer. Right, this is this freeware tool, and we're going to connect to, using LDAP, right, to our VCAC ID appliance and using the host name or fully qualified domain name. And I'm going to cheat a little bit here because I'm lazy, right? So your base DSN, depending on which tenant you're using. For me, I'm just using the standard vSphere local account. Security level is going to be user and password, and the username, or sorry, the distinguished name for the user looks like this, and the password, which I can't tell you because it's mine. I'll just make sure I type that in properly again. So now what that's done is allowed us to log into the LDAP instance on the VCAC appliance. And actually where to go now is maneuver yourself down to services, identity manager, tenants, and on my home lab VCAC instance I've got two tenants. One's called test.com and the default one, which is vsphere.local. I modified the vsphere.local one because that's pretty much where I do most of my testing in dev. If you select that particular tenant, move over to this side of the application, click on table editor, you will find a parameter which is vmw_sts brand name. In there is HTML and style sheets format of some code, which you can then modify and edit. So you can do things like specify which of these graphics files you want to use in your portal, and also modify the look and feel and the color of the actual portal itself. What I found was it was actually a little bit easier just to cut and paste this into something like Notepad++. Right, and what you do from here is actually work through this line of code, and you can start to see things like the image that's specified in that top left hand corner, and I changed it to, you know, app BG pattern 2 instead of the original one. I changed the logo, so the logo graphic. I also changed the caption. So Canopy Cloud demo Manchester DC. But what I also did was I changed the color of the background, and you have to do this several times because there's several iterations of this parameter for the different types of browsers that might be used with the with browsing to VCAC. When you look at yours, or the default parameter and how it's laid out in the LDAP query, it will look somewhat different, and that's because VMware have used a CSS style sheet type parameter to give you a gradient in the color. So as the color moves across the screen, it changes gradient. Now I didn't want all of that. I just wanted a flat color. So when you look at mine, yeah, it's just this orange color all the way through. I didn't want any fancy lighting or gradient. So what I did was I just changed that parameter to background and the hexadecimal version of the RGB color on each iteration for each of these different browsers. Eventually that gave me this lovely orange background. What I also did was you know, you can do things like change the location of your caption, and you'll find that somewhere in, that's pretty much the location, right, of your caption, and you can change those kind of things as well. I also did things like changed the text color that was available. I could have changed this text color if I'd liked as well, but I just left it white because it goes with the orange background. So once you've done that, what you do is, be very careful what you're doing. You know, check it twice because you're modifying code, and I'm pretty sure this is unsupported, but someone will have to correct me if I'm wrong. Copy it back into this location. Click OK. I'm not going to do it now because I've already changed it. Once you've done that, hit submit. And then what will happen is, next time you fire open VCAC for that specific tenant, you'll get a modified front page. Pretty cool, hey? Now, the only thing that that hack and what I've showed you doesn't do is change the look and feel of this log on button. And as I mentioned before, actually the files that configure that log on button are in this CSS folder, and it's these three login.css files. I downloaded them into my onto my local desktop. What I did was, just to be on the safe side, I made a copy of them in this folder. So in this folder is the original versions of those files. But I edited these three files, and the parameters that I changed, I cut and pasted into each one of these three different files, saved it, and copied it back across into the VCAC ID appliance. So if I show you quickly what I changed, yeah, this is the style sheet for that logon button, right? Yeah, or for the page itself, the login page. You'll find an area here which refers to the actual button itself, right? Yeah. So I changed the color of the button to this lovely orange color, right? So that's the background of that button. It's the same color as the desktop itself. I could have changed that to anything I like. I was merely proving a point that you could do that, right? So once you've done that and you've changed that style sheet, cut and paste it into the same area on the other two documents, save them off, copy them back across into your VCAC ID appliance, and Bob's your uncle, you've also modified the logon button. Now, the only downside to it is, like I mentioned at the beginning of this video, is this, when you modify those style sheets, you're doing that for every tenant, and I yet to have found a way to actually modify the logon button per customer, per tenant. I'm going to hack away and see if I can work that one out too. But I hope you've enjoyed this lovely video from me. And if you need to find me, you know where to get me. I'm at virtualizeplanet.com. That's my email address, and that's my Twitter handle. Thank you so much for watching.